Almost 8,000 people, most of them civilians, were killed in the war. This makes Iraq the second most violent country in the world after neighboring Syria, I should say, this year. With more on all of this, let's bring in John Burns, former Baghdad bureau chief of the New York Times. He joins us now live via Skype from Cambridge. What are we to make of the political scene as it is reflected in these ongoing bombings?
Well, when I hear Michael Holmes talking, I think back to the future, back to 2006, 2007, and a situation which actually was predicted at the time by some of the American commanders and diplomats in Baghdad, that if Maliki and his government, Shia-dominated government, did not move to address the root causes of the sectarian conflict in Iraq with the Sunni minority, the formerly governing Sunni minority, then nothing that American troops, indeed nothing that Iraqi troops might do, would solve the problem. And today we hear that Ban Ki-moon, the United Nations Secretary General, is appealing to Maliki in just exactly the same sort of terms that American representatives did back then, 6-7 years ago now. He says that Maliki has to address the root causes of unrest and make sure that nobody gets left behind. It's code, but it's exactly what General Petraeus and before him General Casey and the ambassadors the United States sent to Baghdad were telling Maliki all those years ago.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Nouri al-Maliki. We heard him there just a few moments ago pointing a finger directly at al-Qaeda. Some of the people inside Iraq who support him say this is all a spillover from Syria's ongoing civil war. But how much responsibility really does the Prime Minister bear in all of this? Do we believe accusations that it's al-Qaeda that he's battling?
No. No, and I think there's a false distinction in any case. It was common in the time that American troops were in Iraq. You can't simply draw a line between the al-Qaeda-inspired insurgency and the Sunni tribal and other insurgencies. You have a deeply disaffected Sunni minority who have been marginalized, as of course the Shia majority were marginalized in their turn under Saddam. And unless that problem is addressed, unless in fact the Sunnis, the Shia and the Kurds sit down and address the fundamental problems involved in building a civil democratic state with respect for minority rights, this situation will only get worse. And very, very hard to say this, but all that America expended so much blood and treasure to achieve will simply be buried beneath the Iraqi sands.
All right, we look at this problem, John Burns, and we have to ask, is it a trajectory toward renewed civil war? Or the way that it's playing out, is it showing us that that's no longer possible? It's going to be too limited, just a long death spiral, if you will, for some of the communities, the minority communities inside Iraq?
No, I think we argued in the New York Times and other media organizations in Iraq in 05, 06, 07 as to whether we should refer to what was going on as a civil war. I was a little bit hesitant at the time. I thought it was too strong a term. Looking back on it and looking at the numbers we now know, they're similar to the sort of numbers we are looking at now, the ones that you recited only a minute or two ago. I think we are once again very close to a civil war in Iraq. And I think we have to, we can't blame this only on Maliki, although I may sound as if I do. I think this is ultimately an outgrowth of a schism in Iraq, indeed a schism in the Muslim world, which has lasted now nigh on 1,000 years, and which we, by which I mean the West, the United States, the United Kingdom, are no longer, if we ever were, in a position to significantly mediate, correct, ameliorate.